In this challenge, 3 social workers are going to try and retain the identity of 3 playing cards in their brains as they go through a series of distractions. So they're flipping over their cards now, they're trying to figure out what they are. Okay, so she's got Ace of Clubs, 9 of Spades, Jack of Hearts it looks like. Now they're going to try to memorize a series of words. Okay, their next task will be to skip. And then they're going to face another distraction puzzle. And then finally they have to write down the identity of the 3 cards on whiteboards before they're done. So Tyler's now yelling out really simple math questions to them, 1 plus 4, and they have to yell the answer out. He's trying to distract them from the memory. Now obviously a puzzle this complex wouldn't normally be used with Ignite. Usually you might have 1 distraction, but these folks are experimenting a little bit with the whole technique. Okay, they're onto the puzzle. They have to flip the shape upside down, moving only 2 sticks. And 1 guy's done already, 2 are done already, and now they're writing down the identity of their playing cards. Writing down their playing cards from left to right. Let's see if she's got it. And she's got all the words too. Pretty darn close. What's the suit, Jen? That was pretty quick. So we're going to talk first about bright spots. Now, even before we were doing Ignite, a large part of our job revolved around convincing people to change and modify behavior. So a lot of our jobs as personal trainers, or our success is usually measured by how well we can actually get somebody to modify their behavior. Okay, it's not that there's a secret plan out there that all personal trainers learn on their very first day and we deliver to you for $500. It's more that our job is to keep you going until you can actually make the change yourself, right? So the talk usually in the fitness industry is around extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, and it's assumed that if somebody comes in and they have the right motivation that they're going to eventually succeed. And if not, we have to create extrinsic motivation through yelling, screaming, cajoling, begging, and giving you rewards, right? Does that actually work? No, absolutely not. Instead, what we've got to do is look at how the brain actually responds to change and create desire to change so that it becomes intrinsic, instead of trying to work with extrinsic motivation. So the very first thing that we're going to do, which catches a lot of people by surprise, is try to figure out what they're already doing right. Most people, when they come in and they're, they got to lose 100 pounds, for example, think, well, I'm doing everything wrong now. I'm at the bottom of the barrel, so, how am I ever going to start this train moving? It seems like a hard process. So what we're going to do now is take your paper or your whiteboard or whatever you want to do and write down 3 things that you're already good at. Okay, 3 bright spots. Doesn't have to be related to this. Doesn't have to be related to sports or learning or anything in particular. It could be job related. It could be parenting skills. Anything that you're already good at. But be specific. Okay. Like, don't just put down karate. Put down striking. Okay, and we're going to write down 3 things. Now, I'm going to show you how to actually use this to leverage behavior out of people in a minute. But bright spots can also be knowledge-based, okay? It can be something that you're proud of that you know that other people don't know, or even the ability to learn things that other people can't learn or can't seem to learn, okay? We're also going to start a process of change by building on existing habits that people already have. So it's much easier for me to say, okay, while you're out walking your dog tonight, I want you to go a kilometer farther, or I want you to go faster from this light pole to the next, and then walk, and then go faster again to the next light pole, than it is to say, start going for walks. Okay, we know that that doesn't work. The other thing is the amygdala, which controls your perception of how you fit into the group, and a lot of the fight or flight response that we get. The only way that you can talk the amygdala down off its high ledge all the time is to convince it that doing something, doing an activity, will make you appear to be more of the group, and therefore less susceptible to danger. Okay, the person who is at the center of the pack is the one least likely to be attacked by the wolves. Okay, the sick deer gets shunted out to the side, and the wolves get that one. So if we can show somebody that they're really good at something, and then put them in a group where those people are doing all the same things, then that person's more likely to report that they enjoy the activity because they're better than most of their peers, okay, or they're already good at it. So when people start at Catalyst, a big trick that we play on them is to invite them to a workout featuring an exercise that they're good at. So if Jen starts today and she picked up, double unders really quickly, then I would maybe on Wednesday, if double unders was part of our normal workout, send her a Facebook message and say, hey, Jen, this is your thing today, you're good at this, and she'd be more likely to come. Right? You'd fall for that.
Maybe what a double under was, sure.
Exactly. Okay. A lot of people, if they're heavier, don't want to start doing CrossFit because there's a perception that only fit people start CrossFit. But if we take something that they're really good at, maybe it's a deadlift, okay, and show them that they're way stronger than a normal human, then the next time a deadlift comes up, they're encouraged to show up and try that. And we've used that exact that example with a lot of people. Deadlift or double under. Okay. A double under is when you jump once and the rope passes under your feet twice, which sounds kind of difficult, but it's pretty easy to learn. But it still looks awesome. Right? Okay. So now we've established bright spots. Okay, we've given people kind of a glimpse into things that they're already doing right, showing them that they're already moving along in the world. The next step that we're going to do comes from a behavioral researcher named Lowenstein. Okay, and we commonly refer to this as gap theory. But basically, Lowenstein's principle says that the closer you come to the end point of an activity, the more you desire to finish the activity, to see it through. Okay? So, you start reading a bad novel. This is an example we use all the time. How likely are you to put it down if you're close to the end? Pretty unlikely, right? You're likely to finish it. If you're halfway through the novel, most people are still inclined to finish it. If you just started it, you're more likely to put it down, right? A movie, because there's a social aspect involved, you're more likely to sit through a bad movie than you are to read a bad book, because if you stand up in the middle of a movie theater and walk out, other people are going to watch you, right, and form some kind of judgment about you based on that. So now the amygdala is worried about fitting in, and you're more likely to sit through the bad movie. Okay? So obviously, if this is true, and we want to get somebody to hear, the best thing that we can do for that person is to move them far along here. Okay? So bright spots would be step number one. Show them that they already are moving along that journey. Okay? Then we want to kind of give them a bonus. Okay? First, we're going to forecast future bright spots. So we're going to find a very small step that they're going to be successful at. So you're going to ask them, how will you know when we're getting closer to the end result? Okay, so I'll give you the example of weight loss. Clint, you're going to lose 5 pounds. How are you going to know, aside from the scale, when the exercise is starting to work?
My
Pants are loose. Beautiful. Julie, what would you say to that? What's another way somebody would know? Okay. What if we were learning French? This is us going to Paris. How are we going to know that we're starting to retain French better?
Put the French channel on and understand something.
All right. Good. Okay. Jennifer, we're starting to learn the guitar. Our bright spot is that we have the guitar and our spouse plays the guitar. How are we going to know when it's starting to sink in?
Oh, and it sounds like a song.
When it sounds like a song. Okay, good. The first time we play some notes and it sounds like a song? Yeah, exactly. Then we've hit the next bright spot, right? All you got to do is teach them Smoke on the Water, which is 3-5, 3-6-5, 3-5-1, open, yeah. Easy, okay? So now you've got a future bright spot, and you've given them a little bit of a head start. Now where the 20% bonus idea comes in was from research on consumer behavior activity at a car wash. So if somebody had one of these punch cards for free car washes, and it had 10 punches on it, and you gave it to them and you said, okay, if you fill in all these punches, you get a free car wash, they're likely to use it about 20% of the time. I'm going to say 10% of the time just so you don't get confused with this other 20% of it, okay? If you give them that same card and it has 12 dots on it, and the first two are already pre-punched for them, they're about 60% likely to actually use the card because of the gap theory. Okay? Now, this is research that comes from business, but in business, people are motivated to get clients coming back over and over and over again. The fitness community and, unfortunately, the mental health community hasn't really embraced this yet, or education either. So if we can show people that they've already got a head start using these two methods, okay, or using bright spots, they're far more likely to see the progress or the project through to the end. So if the person comes in and identifies one bright spot in our practice, my next job is to identify the next bright spot for them and tell them that they have it. So if somebody starts up and says, I want to lose 5 pounds, and I say, what are you doing every day? Oh, I'm walking my dog. Well, that's their own bright spot, okay? That's an existing habit we can build on. When we do our first session and it turns out that they don't have tight hamstrings and they can squat well, only 50% of the people who start here can do that. So now I've given them another head start. When we give them their food guide and they say, I can't really eat gluten anyway because I don't digest it, you've got another huge bright spot there, okay? We're way farther along than most people, okay? So it's our job to kind of identify those as we go along, okay? So we're going to put these three things together to modify behavior in people. Ty's going to talk a little bit more about the growth mindset later on. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the talent myth. Can't find the talent myth. The talent myth isn't a term that you're going to see very often. But I think that you guys can kind of get the gist of what it actually means, okay? There's a myth that exists out there that we're born with just a natural, innate talent, okay? A skill for things. Was Gretzky born the best hockey player ever? Was Michael Jordan born the best basketball player ever? Or was that completely developed, okay? And we're sort of touching on the nature versus nurture debate, which you guys probably all face all the time, right? Yeah, or you've had anyway, maybe just in college. What we're saying is talent comes from a lack of things, lack of obstacles, okay, lack of things that are holding you back at birth. Okay. So, for instance, someone could be born into a house that couldn't afford to have a piano. Okay, that's an obstacle. Someone could be born into they could be born without arms, okay? That's going to hold them back maybe from playing a guitar. It's not going to hold them back from everything, okay? Number 2 is opportunity to practice. Okay? If, again, you have a piano in your house and there's no obstacles stopping you from playing that piano, you have a lot of opportunity to practice, okay? 3 would be the practice mindset, or the way you approach practice. If you're approaching practice in a playful way, meaning that there is no succeed or fail or time limit that you must fulfill, or you have to get this right, it's not a drill, you're just playing around, you're far more likely to practice frequently and succeed. Okay? I'll tell you my own story from hockey. I was the worst hockey player in the universe until I got a job cleaning a rink. So I would have to be at a rink from 7 o'clock at night till about 10 at night, and that meant that I played hockey that whole time. I was already off a team. There was no pressure for me to make a rep team anymore, and so that's when I got way better. Okay? When you remove the stress out of the practice mindset and the demand to actually perform at a certain level, it becomes a lot easier to learn new skills and actually try things and take risks. Obviously, we just talked about that, right? And finally, you have to be supported. Okay? Now, I'll tell you where we started off on this. Malcolm Gladwell, you guys have probably read his stuff, was at an OHL game, actually, and he said that he was flipping through his program and noticed that about 3/4 of the players on the OHL team were born between January and March. And he thought that was kind of a freaky abnormality. And then he started, when he got home, he started looking up other OHL teams, and he noticed that at that level of hockey, about 2/3 of all the players were born in the first quarter of the year. Okay? Now, does that mean that people who are born earlier in the year are just naturally better at hockey? Obviously not. What happens is that they're born in January. Okay, here's January. And by the time the calendar works its way all the way around to December, that'd be me, these kids are 11 months older. Okay, now the size difference between an 11-month-old baby and an infant is massive, right? More than double. So by the time they're 8 years old, which is when most kids playing hockey start making rep teams and stuff, the size difference is still big, and the gap between physical development hasn't caught up yet. Okay, so these kids, the kids born in January, are usually bigger, they have better hand-eye coordination, and they're usually more skilled at moving around. So they're the first ones drafted for rep teams, or taken aside and given extra coaching, or their parents are more encouraged for them to, play hockey in the summer, or play on extra leagues, or to go on road trips, that sort of thing, okay? Or to even try out for the rep teams. By the time they get to about age 12, when these differences have balanced out a little bit, these kids have had 4 extra years of elite advanced coaching, or more playing time, or extra encouragement. Maybe dad built a rink because he was told at age 8, hey, your kid's got some promise here, you better nurture it, right? So this cycle just perpetuates itself. So these kids who have the same lack of obstacles at birth, the kid born in January has more opportunity to practice, he has a more encouraging mindset to play, and he's got more support behind him actually pushing him to challenge himself and do different things. Okay? So it's not all nature and it's not all nurture, but you can certainly take somebody a lot farther than just the circumstances they were born with.
Is that what applies to the school system in general then?
Absolutely. The school system runs off the Roman calendar, right? So a kid born in January and a kid born in December, there's a pretty massive difference there. my son started in November this year at age 3, and he was going right from still having naps every day to full day every day. So, full disclosure, most Fridays he comes here and goes to the library instead of going to school.
My daughter's like that too. So until she was like in grade 6 when she finally was like, oh, I think I like school now. I was like, yeah, we took 7 years to help me get there.
Exactly.
Because she just didn't find it interesting. She's like being at home. We were much more active, and then and then being forced to to do this structure and to learn this stuff. And she's like, I don't understand why I need to know any of this. Why can't I just be at home and do stuff?
Exactly. Well, you're too good to her at home, obviously. Yeah, you should lower your standard to everybody else. Okay. So where this differs from just the approach to actually nurturing the kid is the notion of mass practice. Okay. You've got to have a lot of practice to develop new skills, and you've got to have a lot of practice in different circumstances. Okay. Meaning, if a kid wants to get better at jiu-jitsu, they can't just come and wrestle smaller kids all the time and get better, even if they're all at the same level like Kramer was. Okay? They have to wrestle kids of the opposite sex, and they have to wrestle kids who are taller and kids who are smaller and kids who are heavier and kids from different classes. We're gonna put this out there, 10,000 hours, okay, of practice. Now, people point to young child prodigies, okay, Gretzky, saying that they were great at an early age. Okay, guess when Wayne Gretzky's birthday is? January. Are you joking me?
No, I actually know that because it's my parents' anniversary. It actually is January 27th. Perfect.
Well, and now, and now we're never asking this question at a cert again. That's fantastic. Way to go. Relevant, because it's your parents' anniversary. Okay. The other thing was, he's got 2 younger brothers. So Walter would be making this rink out behind their house, and he would talk a lot of the times in his own book about Wayne coming home from practice and flipping the yard lights on because the kids would go outside all night if they would let them, right? So by the time Wayne got drafted to the Sioux Greyhounds, when he was only 16 years old, he already had about 8,000 hours of practice under his belt. And that's just me mathematically kind of extrapolating that time from when he was 5. That doesn't mean that every kid has to get on skates at age 3 or they're not going to make it. All I'm saying is that extra practice helps a lot. But what really helped was the desire, okay? Walter never pushed him to practice, never said, hey, do you want to go outside? Hey, get outside, go flood the rink. Wayne and his brothers would always be out there anyway, okay? It's also worth noting that his other brothers, who were born much later in the year and who were smaller kids, who practiced just as much as him, never really went very far. I think Keith made it to the NHL. I think Keith maybe played a few games in the NHL. Anyway, Gretzky's more my generation. Okay, another one is Mozart. Okay, always referred to as the child prodigy. Okay. Don't know his birthday? I couldn't even give you the year. Here's the thing. He wrote his first full symphony when he was 13 or 12, I think. What do you want to think? What do you want to guess his dad's job was? Yeah, composer, music teacher. Okay. Piano in the house. How rare do you think that was back then? Pretty rare. Okay. Piano lessons taught in the house. So this kid was actually hearing piano music in utero. His dad's job was not teaching, but also composing, right? So this is what they would talk about around the house all day. So by the time this kid was 12, 13, he probably had 6,000 or 7,000 hours talking, interacting, campfiring, which we'll talk about later. Composing music was just a natural part of his whole life. And really, piano was playing. So it's not that he wrote a good symphony at age 12. He just wrote a symphony at age 12. Okay? Anybody got any other examples? No? Okay. The Beatles is the other big one from that Gladwell mentions. Again, these guys, they got a job actually in Russia, playing at this bar where they'd have to play 18 hours a day, 6-7 days a week. And when they weren't playing, the only other musical acts were like country or blues or all these random things that the Beatles just started incorporating into their music, So, okay, mass practice. Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the approach to practice. I keep losing it. Oh, sorry. Maybe if I put it in the same place twice. Belt clip. Yeah. If my hands weren't so permeated with chalk anyway, I could probably erase this with my hands. Okay. Approach to practice. And this is going to lead us into the growth mindset stuff that Ty's going to talk about later. Approach. All right. So now, obviously, it's our goal to make people want to do this kind of stuff, okay? And if they approach it as play, if they think that developing skill is fun or it's part of a game, they're much more likely to do it, okay? Statistic from our own company, the industry average for retention, meaning somebody signs up for their gym membership January 1st. By March 31st, what percentage of people are still there? 47. You guys were low, but that's all right. 47 to me is abysmal. Okay? So in 2006, we started a 2-year longitudinal study of what it took to actually make people exercise, because we were writing what we thought were unbelievably awesome fitness programs and people weren't doing them. So anyway, we manipulated variables and we did some stuff online and some stuff in person. And our current retention rate is 93%. Okay?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's massive. We don't grow very fast, and whenever I'm asking for another loan to get bigger, the bank always says, well, how many new clients do you get a month? About 5. Okay, well, how can you make any money? Well, we don't lose any, so. And the reason is that we focus on fun skill development. Okay? If you haven't seen our workouts before, they look like games. Okay? We don't track how much somebody weighs in January versus how much they weigh in June. We track how much they can lift, how fast they can go, how quickly they can get this done, how many reps of this they can do. And we name a lot of the workouts. So it's the same challenge once every few months repeated. Okay? So we just talked about a challenge named Murph. Okay? Murph to you two didn't have any relevance because you'd never heard of it before. Murph around here makes Clint kind of a demigod because he did it 2 days in a row. Okay? So Murph is a 1-mile run. 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then a 1-mile run.
What type of emotional memory do you have attached to Murph there, Clint? Second one sucked.
Exactly. But what was that, 2.5 years ago? Okay. And I can remember all the circumstances around that. We have about 70 people show up and do this every year. And it's not because we want to hurt people. It's because we want to give them a positive emotional memory based around a workout. So what happens is they show up at 8 a.m. The gym is jammed. There's beginners and people who are really overweight, and there's really elite people, and they're all doing the same workout, and it doesn't matter. We roll up the big garage door. They're going outside in the snow. By 9, 10 o'clock, everybody's drinking beer in the snowbank. Okay? We want to give them that sense of community and fun memory, because once you've done 2 or 3 of these, you're not going to go to Good Life anymore. Okay? This is a big mental trick that we're playing on guys like Clint. Okay? So we're satisfying different parts of their brain with that. So our goal then is to provide a sense of fun and enough challenge is key, that you're never bored. okay? There are so many different elements to the workouts that we do here that if you start getting really good at one thing, it's probably because you're getting less skilled at something else, okay? So you can work all summer on trying to get faster at running, and then work all fall at trying to get more proficient in the clean and jerk, and then work, towards a worldwide competition, which is what our team is doing right now, okay? So our goal is to try and always make things fun, but always try and keep the challenge level high enough that they're encouraged to keep trying it. If it's too easy, they're not going to do it, okay? And Ty's going to go more into that in a minute. As soon as I talk about the flow state, I have no idea where I put it. Thank you. That's getting pretty distracting for them, right? They have to remember where I put it. All right. Now, at the anti-aggression seminar, we had an awesome discussion of right and left brain activity. So, there's my brain again. Good. So just from stuff that we remember this morning, what kind of activity or what kind of information is processed in the left hemisphere more? Logic.
I look at the left brain more like black and white type thinking.
Black and white, I like that. Clint? Calculation, yeah. It's a big spreadsheet over there. Jen?
I was going to say reasoning, but you have logic.
Yeah, could be different though.
Music.
Music? The composition of music, absolutely. Yeah, and the composition of language too. So, yeah. So, melody and tune, definitely. Okay, organization of language, music. Okay. What goes on in the right hemisphere? Creativity, right on.
So in terms of music, the emotional response music?
Emotional response, yeah. Sure. Okay. Clint?
Spatial relations go on that side?
More. This would be here. Yeah. So if you've got two bricks here, this would identify them as bricks. This would identify how the bricks are in relation to each other usually. What about empathy? Pardon me? Yeah.
The emotional response.
Yeah.
What about like abstract thinking? Is that
Yep. Absolutely. Community. So, things that make us the same as everybody else, okay? Where this is largely individualistic. What makes us different? Okay. So reading My Stroke of Insight, which I was doing just before our last certification, it was really interesting because it was a neurosurgeon who had this stroke, and a large part of her left hemisphere died. And so she got this floating response for months where she was operating almost completely with her right hemisphere, and she's got like PET scans showing this stuff. She felt like everybody was part of the universe, almost like a quantum mechanics. Okay? The same energy's flowing through all of us. What makes us the same is much bigger than what makes us different. She could feel energy from the nurses, positive or negative, and so some nurses she would be really happy to see. Some she could feel like sucking the energy out of her, right? And she was kind of struggling with this because as a neuroscientist, she'd been trained to use more of the left hemisphere of her brain, but that was gone to her now. Words, she could think of pictures of words in her brains, but she couldn't put them together coherently, okay? On the other hand, she had this state of constant flow, okay? Like blissful happiness. She had the ability to find compassion for everybody. The doctor comes in and he's asking her quick questions, and her immediate thought is, wow, this guy must be exhausted. If he's talking to me like this, it's for a reason. Or her family is like messing around with her pillows and making her uncomfortable, and she's worried about them. Okay. So part of the problem was that when they started doing rehab and cognitive therapy on her, she didn't want to go back to this. Like, she actually resisted coming back into being able to form language. She was actually a musician. I forget what she called herself, but she would go around the country singing songs about the brain to help people learn, and she didn't want to go back to that even. She didn't want to learn how to put music together. And so it took a long time for her to actually make the decision to retrain the left side of her brain. Now, if you consider new research showing that when people are playing on cell phones, okay, texting, playing games, iPads, almost anything using a screen, what they're really doing is processing the information, calculating it, and putting it back out. Okay? Most of the text that you send on your phone is actually a reaction or a response to something. It's rare that conversations are initiated on a text message, right? So if I send Ty a text, how was lunch? That's going to go back and forth as a series of reactions 20 times before we start a new one, right? It's easier always to reply to an email or a text message than it is to compose a new one, okay? Even when kids are playing video games, okay? What's the most popular video game right now? Angry Birds. Whatever. Same thing. Data processing, right? What's happening is the left hemisphere of the brain is being trained, okay? It's getting stronger. And as the brain prioritizes this side kind of gets left out in the dark, okay? So the next step in that series of connections would be to think that kids are going to soon need empathy training to be able to relate to other kids, okay? A lot of the bullying that's going on right now is called cyberbullying because it's very easy when you're not face-to-face with a person to tell them that they're fat. You're fat. Oh, that was easy, but did you? He gives it back to me. Don't worry. It's so much easier to bully somebody online because you don't actually feel any of these things for them. You're using your left brain to relate to them instead of any of these. So a big part of what we do when somebody comes in and they're dealing with anxiety, depression, and largely autism, because autism, a lot of brain power is focused in the left hemisphere. They need to be able to open up the right hemisphere of their brain before they can actually learn anything. So we do a couple of things to encourage flow, okay, the flow state. And one of those very first things is called campfiring. And I wish that I'd taken a picture of you guys sitting down there after the workout and talking about different things and collaborating, because that is campfiring. That was beautiful. Yeah, I could have, drawn a little cartoon campfire in the middle there because you're all sitting down, hunkered, and shooting out ideas at each other. That was awesome. So what you've got to do to get somebody into a campfiring state, and exercise helps, is find a physical activity at which they're really good. So they already have a built-in skill set. Okay, it would be a bright spot activity. If it's a physical activity, then the left hemisphere of their brain is going to be occupied putting them through the motions, okay? Even though I've now done, I think, 3 million squats in my life, the left side of my brain still has to process that information to actually make me do it, to synchronize my joints. The right hemisphere of my brain doesn't have to be involved anymore, okay? If Tyler shows me how to do a clean for the first time, then I'm kind of involved all over here trying to pick up that coordination, and I won't be able to focus on what we want them to focus on. So they've got to be good at it. It's got to be challenging enough that the left hemisphere stays engaged. Obviously, spelling's a little bit too challenging for me. But it can't be so challenging that it requires their full attention. Okay? And what you're doing there is opening up a window into the right hemisphere. So, examples. Skipping, fantastic. If you're a good skipper, that memory challenge would be pretty easy for you because you don't have to actually think about skipping. Julie? Squats, yeah. Jen? What's up? Running? Absolutely. How many runners talk about having runner's high, right? What is that? It's flow. That's all that is. They've been running long enough that they don't have to think about stride or technique or anything anymore. They just do it. And that frees up the right hemisphere of their brain. For Ty, it's playing catch, right? Ty was a collegiate baseball player. Catch is very natural to him. So Ty, why do people play catch a lot before baseball games, even at the pro level?
We have to make sure that we've anchored down, we've got all the movements down pat again. We want to play catch so that we don't have to think about it when we're playing the game. We can expand our mind and take in information about the game rather than worry about the skill.
Yeah.
I want to be able to feel the ground ball, pick it up, throw it as fast as I can to first base without having to think about it. Because I have only about 4 seconds or less. If I have to think about throwing and playing catch, I'm not gonna be good at this sport.
Right.
You got to open up cognitive space for the game itself.
Create cognitive space. Now, a lot of teenagers who come in to see Ty are so dominated by self-judgment, by what makes them different than all their peers and trying to fit in, that they have a tough time opening up to the skills that we're trying to teach them. So a lot of the times, the first thing Tyler will do is one of these things, like they're already good at, right? Let's go outside and play catch for 20 minutes. Another example of that.
Well, think about being in the shower, for example. Very easy task, right? Washing your hair, very automatic.
Yep.
Where do you come up with some of your best ideas?
Shower. Driving your car.
Yep.
For me, it's always dark when I'm driving. Doing the dishes.
There you go.
Good one.
Right on.
Dishes.
Yeah. Sweeping, mopping,
Mopping. That's a big one for me, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you an example of the flip side, me playing baseball. When I was a little kid, I always had really great experiences with hockey, and my coaches were awesome, and my baseball coaches probably meant really well, okay? But I was really bad at catching, and especially bad at using my left hand to do anything. So you put a glove on me, and eventually I'd miss the ball 9 times out of 10. A really easy pop fly, and I'd just have to stand there, and I would overthink it. Okay, I'm also ADD, so I think about 50 different things that I should be doing, and before you know it, I drop the ball, right? I think myself out of it. So this becomes such a stressful thing that I don't even want to play baseball anymore, let alone go out in the field. So eventually I form this big barrier, and I can't think when all I have to really do is just put up my hand and not think. And that's what stops you from catching the ball. So then you get bad at it, you hate it, and you quit. Okay?
It's also when you hear coaches or sport analysts saying, "Oh, the guy's pressing, he's thinking too much." That's not allowing you to automatically perform the movement and then concentrate on the stimuli, right? You're pressing, you're trying
Yep.
to put yourself in the right spot at the right time, and all trying to control way too many factors.
Yep. So last example, when sports broadcasters or coaches or athletes talk about being on a streak, they can be on a good streak or a bad streak. What's creating the streak is their perception of being on a streak, really. If I think, man, I'm doing way better at these workouts, I'm doing good, I'm halfway through now, I'm much more likely to push hard and be successful and finish well than if I get one round in and think, this sucks. Like, why am I rope climbing today? Why am I trying to get back up on these rings already? That's what kills your flow state. Okay, so our intervention is memory combined with a more complex skill. Okay, participants are picking 3 words off this memory list. As soon as they've chosen 3 words, they hop around the giant circle once on one foot To add a little bit of stress, if the other foot touches the ground, they have to stop and do 5 push-ups. Once they've made it all the way around the circle, they can run across and circle those 3 words from the word search sheet. If they forget one of those 3 words, that word has to be one of the 3 words that they choose from the sheet next time. So if they remember words 1 and 2 and don't remember number 3, the next time they look at the sheet, they're only allowed to start with word number 3. So they pick word 3, 4, 5. Yep. Okay, so here's our first contestant. Young, glamorous, obviously good at word searches. And the other two are having some trouble finding their words. But you're doing awesome. Nobody has had to do any push-ups yet. Okay, now she can run back and find her next 3 words. Did you get all 3 words the first time? Yes. Fantastic. Did you guys remember all your 3 words the first time? Yep, good stuff. That's right. It's not easy. You can spell it, Clint. You just haven't spelled it yet. Okay, so let's take a look at our word list here. Okay, these are the type of words we're looking at here. And we're picking up some pretty negative self-talk from the participants.
You don't do 4 word searches every single week. Don't expect to click at this.
Wow, Julie, go, go, go. Fantastic. What a stud. What a stud. Yeah, here she goes. Good job, absolutely. Good job, Clint. There we go. Yeah, let's get physical. Let's add another little element into this game. Good stuff, guys. Now they're going to alternate which foot does the hopping each time around. So far, nobody's stumbled on the hops at all. Incredible. So they're not feeling very stressed out by that, I guess. A little bit of chatter, a little bit of talk of cheating. Wow, great job that time. The tables have turned. Now we're going to play a little trick on them later. What we're going to do is ask them at the end of the session to remember 3 of the words from this challenge. And that's going to be tough for them to do because they are under duress, physical duress instead of emotional, while they're actually doing the challenge. So we'll see how easily they remember 3 of the words later.
Growth mindset. And it has a lot of things under the umbrella. So it has everything from self-talk to organization, goal setting. It has a lot of elements. You have to have basically the total package. Okay. What other things help us be successful? Yep. Especially, and it has to be intrinsic. So they have intrinsic motivation. They have a burning desire. And no one told them to have a desire. It was installed over a lot of practice. What else? Guys, think of anything else?
Mindset for growth is optimistic. Is that something that you need to have optimism in order to?
Yep, definitely. Now, we want to be careful with optimism. We don't want to say, we don't want to have so much optimism that everything's going to be fine no matter what. You know what I mean?
we do want to have an element of, okay, I can control this, but if something bad happens, there's a reason, I'm going to learn from it.
Mistakes are learning.
Exactly. Optimism, and this is exactly what we wanted to get out of here. Learning from mistakes. Good. Very good. Anything else? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got a couple here. What about anything we talked about already, like from earlier in the day? Any of this stuff? Any of these 1, 2, any of the 4 things that we were talking about at the very beginning of the day? No? It's all right. We're digging deep here. We're throwing a lot of stuff at you.
Maybe the joy cycle, like you need to have an interest in what it is that you are setting out to do.
Yep, absolutely. An interest, and so we'll go with. Yep. Yep. No, that's good though. Yes, absolutely. So you have, how to build habits. Habits. Good. And we also need to have an understanding of the effect of exercise on the brain. All this stuff on the brain, right? We need to have a basic understanding. Okay. So what I did, each one of these can be its own self-help book, right? If you look at it, the title of these things, they're probably already out there. So from what books that I've read and things that I've learned from playing sports, CrossFit, from coaching athletes, from being coached, from teaching, from my parents, all these things actually, I realized that my circumstances all were supported around a growth mindset. And that's just was my circumstance. I was taught when we're cheering on teams, athletic teams, is I can definitely cheer on a team. This is one of the things my mom taught me about sports, was that I can cheer on a team, but why do I have to hate the other team? What's the point in that? Do I want to make sure that the other team gets injured and that they make sure that they lose? No, because then the team that I like wouldn't have a challenge, right? So everything around that my life so far I have to thank is for growth mindset. So each one of these things, and I always made sure too that I picked up a book that had something to do with any of this thing and read it. So How to Influence Friends is a good book. Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude, one of my favorites. A lot of different books and any type of quotation or motivational quote that helped me understand how to perform these things better just added to the fact. Okay? So what a fixed mindset would be, basically the opposite. Fear of failure, poor self-talk, poor organizational skills, basically the exact opposite. Okay? So what I put together was a 8-week course on how to gain a growth mindset. When we were doing this study with a high school class, the first day was like, okay, we have a personal trainer come in. You guys are gonna do exercise before you do math. Why? Was the question. Why? How am I even gonna begin to start explaining why? And if I just told them everything that one day, they'd be lost, right? There was just too much going on. We needed to build an understanding. So where we start with, obviously, is understanding of how exercise helps the brain. And then we moved into, it's not on here, then we moved into, so we did that for a week. So day 1 through 5, there's going to be assignments and journal entries on understanding the effects that exercise has on the brain. Then we're going to go into actually a little bit of this, stretching, mobility. How does keeping yourself mobile keep you young, keep you from doing the things that you want to do. So we looked at one of the activities would be describe, give me some words, just one word that describes these two things. So in here you get like old, you get not flexible, forgetful, all these things. So students are really excited to name things, characteristics about old people, because they think it's hilarious. So then you start looking at young. Well, what are some things how can you describe a young person? They're like flexible, they can remember things, all this kind of stuff. So what we looked at is in a growth mindset, how do we make sure that we stay young and avoid being flexible? And it comes back to exercise. So first we wanted them to establish an intrinsic motivation. And there's nothing scarier to a high school kid than getting old. Nothing. They don't want to be old. They don't. And 30's old, right? They don't want to be 30. So they're going to be, okay, let's move. I don't want to be old. I don't want to be inflexible. I don't want to lose my memory. Let's move. Whatever I got to do. Show me what I got to do. So we built a program. It's called the Growth Mindset Handbook, and there's each week we focus on each one of these things. So rather than having them go out and read 30,000 books, we try to isolate a couple of the important facts, and then over 8 weeks develop a growth mindset. And it falls in line with a lot of the other stuff we're doing. Like it's going to take practice. There's a journal entry every single day. But more importantly, we're just, again, creating an environment where we're going to show them that they can control things if they want to, and they can eventually create good habits. Okay. Learning from failure, learning from mistakes. This is what we talked about earlier in this phase right here. And now we're going to get a chance to look at it. Okay? So you got this down. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail in this because you guys, you can order the Growth Mindset Handbook, and it has everything in there. Okay? Just needs to be edited. There's a couple things that need to be fixed on it, but that's about it. Okay. Biggest fear is a fear of failure, right? I think that's got to be everyone's number one fear. Just, I don't want to fail, unless they have a growth mindset where they realize that failure is an opportunity to get better. And that's a mindset that takes a long time to get through. It takes a lot of practice. But can also take some simple understanding of what mistakes I can and am or allowed or should make. Okay? So let's just go with input. So when you first learn a skill, okay, when you first learn a squat, what are some things that can go wrong? Yep, lose your balance. Right on. Yep, what else? I hope not. Yeah, you could, sure. If you're really, really old, right, you can pull a hammy. Sure. Absolutely. You can get into some serious trouble. Well, you can also look funny. Yeah, look funny. Trainer can laugh at you. Yeah, can look funny.
Oh, wow, you can get sweaty, you can get dirty, makeup might start running, a whole bunch of reasons.
Yeah, there is a lot of reasons. Okay, and so these are some mistakes. Okay? Now, you looking funny during a squat. Well, you'll look funny if you do it improperly, but as soon as we give you a couple cues, you'll start to look like everyone else. Okay? Or we can point to somebody and say, okay, look at their hips. Where are their hips? Are they on top of their heels, or are they back behind? You know, just things like that. So if you outline the failures that you expect them that can happen, so this is called a plan for failure. When you plan for failure, and then they only fail maybe 2 out of the 4 things that you outlined, that's a win, right? So great. Okay, you didn't do this. You don't have to worry about that anymore, and you don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay, let's attack this one. And then you go about it that way. So in spelling and reading and any type of assignment, you can do the same thing. Okay, we're going to do this worksheet. What are some things that can go wrong? I forget how to spell a word. Okay, are you going to get in trouble for you not spelling a word right now? No, because we're in the learning phase. That's a mistake that you're allowed to make right now. And letting them be free to make those mistakes is going to allow them to get into this, allow them to get into flow, allow them to get into play, and they're going to want to practice if they know that they can make that mistake because it's normal. Okay? And then, so the mistakes go from really simple to they go to more complex. Okay, so some of the mistakes in here, I think I've even written it on, I may have even written it on the page, maybe not though. So what are some mistakes that can happen in the first phase? Obviously very simple. They can look like really dumb mistakes. Like, oh my God, look at that guy. Can't even do a squat. You know, they can look really dumb, but keep in mind they have absolutely no prior knowledge of the skill. This is input, phase number 1. Too many people, and this is why there's not a lot of guys in town that are doing CrossFit, because they are here, they see that everyone else is here, and they don't even want to try, because everyone's gonna look at and see how far away they are. You know, it's a big ego thing. With girls, they don't really care. They're just here to have some fun. That's what we've seen so far. But looking dumb is totally natural, totally normal, and we want to make sure that, you know, somebody who's new, who's in this phase, you're going to make these dumb mistakes. Go ahead, make them. That way you know what not to do. In the second phase, so speed, when you're working on autonomy or multitasking, what are some mistakes you're going to make? Well, you're going to be forgetful, right? You may forget 1 or 2 things. Because you're trying to do things automatically, and you may be focusing on one thing and you forget to do something else. Like Clint today, forgot to stop. That was a mistake. Did we, was it a big deal? No, absolutely not. It was just a mistake in this phase. Forgetful, not a big deal. It's because we are working on getting rid of those mistakes, so you have to make them. And we have to make sure that, again, it's really important to know what mistakes to make. And then the last one, in our force production or making connections phase, the third phase of learning, usually here, more mistakes, more often than not, they're just careless. Right? We're trying to go too fast. We're driving. We try and maybe do something we shouldn't. Try and be a little bit too aggressive there. You just be a little bit careless because you are trying to find the most efficient way to do things. Maybe you got a little bit lazy and overconfident in your skill level, those types of mistakes happen, right? So on a test, you're really good. This is a unit test, an exam. You're really good at all this stuff, and so you're writing out a list, and you're just going so fast because you know it. You make a careless mistake, and maybe you switch them in the wrong spot, or that's a mistake that's going to happen. Does that mean you're an idiot? You're dumb? You don't know what you're doing? No, you just went a little bit too fast. Try to be a little bit too efficient. So it's really important, again, to understand phases. Maybe a kid might spend 2 weeks here, 1 week there, and then be ready to start making mistakes in this phase. Or maybe they need only 1 day making dumb mistakes before they start going in here, and then they can start making these types of mistakes. But rather than look at where you should be, really it's more important to understand that what mistakes are most common in this phase? Am I making those mistakes? And then go on from there. Glorify those mistakes. For sure. You really want to pay attention to make that mistake. Go and do it. And when they were doing those puzzles, put something in the wrong spot. Do it. Just do something wrong. There's a big fear of failure. Write down an answer. If 9 plus 9, 72. You wrote down an answer. Is that 72? Let's look at it again. Gives you an opportunity to really reevaluate. Nope, it's not 72. Okay, try again. Write something down. There's just way too much pressure on getting the answer right the first time, showing that you're smart. There really is no value in that. So that really is what the growth mindset is about. Okay, outlining mistakes from each phase of learning, and then working through those mistakes, trying to eliminate them one at a time, and being okay with making those mistakes. Never mask those mistakes. I always also try and find a reason for that mistake, and it can't be external, right? Always go back to one of those 5 factors for a reason, or use the brain, use the eye tracking, use something that they can control for a reason they made that mistake, and see if they can try and work at correcting it. Obviously, some things just happen, right? We know that. Some things we can't control, and I don't think we need to teach you guys to recognize those types of situations. But these are the situations that we do want you to pass off to those kids. Which of the 5 factors can we get closer to 10 on to help improve on the skill, and what phase of learning are we at? And then identify those mistakes. Okay. And then the growth mindset handbook has 5 days of each one of those growth mindset topics that we talked about. So it has an article, and then it has reflection questions or a journal assignment, journal entry. So for 8 weeks, there's 5 lessons, and then there's going to be a second edition for a little bit more. I think there's about 2 more weeks that I wanted to put in, but I'll stick with the 8-week one, and then save the higher order thinking last 2 weeks for a second edition. But it's a tool that I'm just gonna, here's the book, go ahead, read and journal type of thing. It's something that I did on my own from a lot of different books, and then just put it into one. So, do you guys have any growth mindset, self-talk experiences?
Just, looking at it, and I wouldn't say I've ever broken it down that, but when I look at, I've been in martial arts for 25 years,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the main, or my main characteristics when people always sort of say, well, why are you still here? Well, you're still doing the same stuff you've been doing for years. The people that know me will say, well, he's just playing.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of that goes in, like, you have to learn from your mistakes. Face it, anytime you learn anything, you're learning from those mistakes.
Yeah.
If you're not, you're creating frustration and stress.
Oh, totally.
So the play is no longer there, right?
That's right. Yeah. And all it takes is just a change of viewpoint to look at a mistake and go from creating an engram of frustration to, oh, that's what I was doing. Oh, well, that was a level 1 mistake. What the hell am I doing that for? I gotta buck up here and work this through. Yeah, get rid of this and start having some fun at it. Yeah, exactly. Right on. Anything else? No? What about specific cases that you can think of?
Well, you already brought up the one example.
Yep.
The person who's gonna have to switch schools, right?
Yeah.
Right now.
Yep. And this was an activity. Okay, we'll do that. This was an activity that that I did, and so we'll use janitorial work for our example. Okay. So already, this guy has been a janitor for a while, so all the basic skills are there, right? The understanding of how to do things, how to clean, what to clean, order, all that stuff. It's there. Going to a new school, what are some mistakes that he's gonna have to face?
Not knowing the layout.
Absolutely. Not knowing the layout. Yep. New lists. Absolutely. New checklists. New expectations. For sure. In this phase only.
It's going to take longer.
Yeah, time for sure. Well, in input for sure, it's going to take longer. Absolutely. So depending on how quickly this individual can pick things up, maybe it takes him let's say 2 weeks to establish a good solid routine where now he can finish everything in a day or in his regular shift. He can recite his list. He can walk through his list, and he knows where every classroom is. He's created a mental map. Awesome. Next set of mistakes. We've entered into phase 2. So now, in this phase here, we're looking at doing some multitasking. So instead of what's an example here? I don't know. Maybe you can wash the board and sweep at the same time. Save some time. You know what I mean? But he can do some things is automatic. So maybe he can start to enjoy work. Maybe he's starting to think of other ideas. Maybe he's starting to notice different things in the classroom because he's experienced autonomy. Okay? So what could be some second level mistakes that he makes?
Forgetting to do things because confidence, not looking at the what's going on.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Maybe he's not here yet. Overlooking and forgetting, for sure. Now, there is a difference between forgetting when you are getting overconfident and when you're trying to create efficiency. Right? This is like a rushing one. This is just forgetting. You're allowed to forget here. Absolutely. You're definitely allowed to forget. Maybe forget some minor tasks like locking a door or something, whatever it will be. So we would need his help, obviously, to look at some mistakes that he would get in trouble for. And here, are you going to get in trouble from your superiors in these first 2 weeks for doing anything? If not, if they're these mistakes. I mean, if you break something, that's probably a mistake in here too, right? But what we're trying to get out of this is these are the mistakes he can make in level 1, now level 2. These mistakes really aren't acceptable, but you know, it's still learning, but we want to try and again move to the next stage, right? And then in here, some mistakes that he's going to make with trying to be efficient. So maybe he misses some spots, or the boards aren't clean enough, or maybe he just decides that instead of putting the chairs up, you just leave them down because it's easier. You know, that type of thing. So it could come off as lazy. Everyone has those days. Trying to rush. But if you are aware that these are the mistakes that can be made, you're going to be less likely to make those mistakes, because you're going to know that, well, what are the repercussions? Well, I'm going to get talked to by my supervisor, whatever. I don't want to have these mistakes be made. Okay? So we just make a plan for failure. Okay? What is the worst possible things that we can happen, mistakes that we can make at each phase? Then we go ahead and make a plan to avoid those. Okay? In your sheets, there is a plan for failure checklist. Pretty sure. Unless I took it out. No, it's there. After number 3, it says managing the controllable factors. It says learning a movement or physical skill. Yep, at the bottom there. Yeah. Okay. So again, now this is just modifying the Ignite 7 steps a little bit towards a plan for failure. If you're really having a student that doesn't have a growth mindset at all and has no idea how to attain one in the next 10 seconds, so you're going to try and create one for him right away. Number 1, set an intention. Number 2, ask the student to watch you perform a skill. Okay? Watch me do this. I'm going to do the skill that I want you to do. Go ahead and watch. So the student steps back and watches you do the skill. Then you're going to ask the student to summarize what was shown. Now, depending on the ability to verbally communicate, you're going to try and activate that pole bridging technique. The reason why you have to ask them to do that first rather than have them perform the skill and pole bridge is that their cueing, their timing for saying what they're doing and their movement is going to be completely off. And as a coach, you'll say, no, that's wrong. And then they're lost again. Okay, so we have to first establish some verbal cues on what they're gonna do, and then ask them, and then they're gonna perform it after that. You're gonna ask spatial relationship questions. Where are my feet? How far apart are my feet? Are your feet that far apart? So before we jump into the movement, after we've established the skill, is summarizing the skill. So let's just use the squat. How far apart are my feet? Are my toes straight, or are they out? What's the first thing I do? Do I drop my hips back? Just completely breaking down the skill into questions, body and spatial relation questions. Then once we've got them in the right positioning and they understand that where their feet need to be compared to every other part of the body in space, then we go ahead and ask, all right, I'm going to ask you to do it on your own. What are some mistakes that we can make? And what we've given them in those first 3 steps is a library of vocabulary to use. They know now that, okay, my feet could be too close together because we already established that my feet need to be this far apart. My feet could be straight instead of having toes out. My butt could be not far back enough. We've given them those abilities, okay, to assess. And then we tell them that it's okay to make these mistakes. Then that's when we ask them to do the pole bridging. Okay, go ahead and do the movement and talk about it. They will slow down their timing, And then going back to our bright spot question is, how will you know you did it right? And usually they'll say, well, you said good job, or I don't have to do it again, or something like that. Or it'll feel effortless, that type of thing. For academic lessons or cognitive skills, again, set an intention, watch and listen, cue the specific act. So if I'm doing a math problem, let's just do a basic algebra. So at each question, make sure the student has it locked down. Okay, what am I doing? What am I doing right now? What have I done here? Well, you got rid of the 4. That's right. I'm taking the 4, putting it over there. Right? That type of thing. We want to break everything down just like we did as a physical skill, and make sure at each question, how, when, what, why am I doing this? What's the purpose? Just overload them with questions about, now instead of spatial awareness, is lesson awareness or whatever it is. Okay. It says here you're going to look here during this part of the lesson to be able to. So if a student has a really difficult time focusing, they may need direction on where to actually look when they're doing the question. Are they looking at me doing the question? Are they looking at the whole thing? Should we only be looking at the 4? We have to specify what we actually want them to do and when. Okay, when I have my back turned to the board and I'm drawing, I want you to take a look at the board. Sometimes it has to be that simple. And then always have them repeat what the actions are, summarizing the steps. Okay, summarizing is key for them. There's also some other questions in there to ask. Question number 5, it says, when I'm explaining this part of the lesson, where are your eyes looking? What should you be writing down right now? What will you be talking and listening and writing with? Test on those actions. If they can answer those questions, then they're definitely focused for sure. So if a student has a fixed mindset about learning, what we can do is get them used to following a specific goal and a specific task, and actually telling them what to do and when, and then keep continuing. Okay, so there's a great checklist there for you guys to use for teaching both physical and academic skills. And again, you can use it on your own. So far, I mean, this is I'm taking from my experiences and what has worked, as far as from the clients that I have seen. So when we get a chance to do some collaborative work, and you have a kid that I've never seen before, a different case, and maybe you can come up with a different list, or maybe you can come up with a different list of questions to ask per whatever the specific skill may be. Those are the types of things that we're going to be doing a lot of in terms of collaboration afterwards. Okay, but these are all the basics. All right. So, we have an understanding what the growth mindset is. And we have an understanding of the joy cycle. We should have a pretty good understanding of this now, because we've done some anchoring, we've done an anchoring activity with it. Okay. Understanding the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and realizing that nobody can actually access higher order thinking unless all those things are taken care of. we can take care of most of them ourselves, or we want to be at least be under the assumption that we can, and understanding of habits, actions, habits, character, and destiny. You guys have a pretty good handle on that stuff? Because you're going to need to know it. You're going to need to know it. No, you don't have to be tested right now. Yeah. No, we just want to make sure again that those are the things that we're going to be using, that you're going to need to understand to be able to create these kinds of activities. All these factors come into play, and at first glance, there's a lot of things. It's overwhelming. But as you become a better teacher and a coach, these things you'll just roll with them. You'll be able to see that when a kid is not in a particular spot, and then which thing you need to pull from. Okay? So what I've done was I got you started on that already. Okay? So if we're dealing with a troubled learner, somebody with a learning disability, ADD, ADHD, if you're first going to talk to them or talk to the parent about Ignite or what you're going to be doing with them, here's some information you're going to gather to formulate the program. You're going to use the Ignite questionnaire. We'll get you a copy of that. You're going to look at the factors affecting focus, attention, concentration. Okay, are they bored? Do they have any dominance issues? Are they having problems with just the teacher? The time spent doing homework, is their homework being given? Is the homework environment at home poor? How are the parents involved? How do the parents talk to or about the student in terms of school? Praising result versus effort. That's something in the growth mindset actually I didn't talk about. But praising effort versus result. What is better? Why?
Because it's okay to fail. If you're putting that effort forth, you can eventually learn from those mistakes and obtain the result you want.
Absolutely. Well said. Doesn't matter if you win the game?
Yeah.
Well. Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, we don't want to put a lot of weight on the result of a game, especially when we're like 8 or 9 years old, right? 8 or 9 years old, if I'm a goalie, 8-year-old goalie, and a goal gets scored on me, is that the end of my career? There's going to be a lot more goals scored on you at 8 years old and for the rest of your life. You better focus on effort versus that being determining that be your skill level, right? Absolutely. This leads to a ton of frustration, but it is a most commonly used form of feedback between parents and coaches and teachers. Oh, you're so smart. Well, did you study for that? Did you study for that test, or are you just smart? You know what I mean? The comments that we use as coaches and teachers and parents for feedback, you have to be aware of if you are praising result or effort. Did that student do really well on a test? Great. Did they study? Okay, let's say if the fluke example, it's not a fluke, but an example of a student who doesn't study but still does really awesome on a test. Well, why? They probably had a good experience with practice. One of the things I found out the most when I was interviewing kids and really, really academic and athletically gifted kids was that on car trips to and from sporting events with rep teams that their parents would take them on, they would play math games. They would do worksheets. They would do all those the things that homework is supposed to be, and they would make it fun. And so the kid would want to practice. And like Coop was talking about, the talent myth that's exactly what the experience that they had at home. So so going back to the experience of, well, you know why you did well at that test? Because you have all this prior knowledge. Maybe you did a really good job of calming your emotions, keeping them in check. You weren't nervous. Those things. We have to praise any effort that they put into it. And you have to find where they put effort in and then praise that. Because if we stop praising effort and start praising result, they're going to cheat. They're going to skimp. They're going to do anything they can. They're going to hide. They're going to lie. They're going to do anything they can to get praise from you, from the teacher, because they got an A plus, or because they whatever the result is. Okay? Okay, some other things you want to formulate for the troubled learner is how you can create relevance and motivate them. Creating relevance is really important, and it's also in the Growth Mindset Handbook. So creating, why am I the old age question to why do I have to know this? That's a pretty ridiculous question, and your answer should be, this is your opportunity to, and then you make it in context and relate it to something that they deem important. So let's say math. Why do I need to know math? Well, do you like money? Yep, of course you do. You like money, you like handling money. You're going to need to learn how to handle money. So the better you are at understanding numbers and practicing with numbers, the better you're going to be handling money, for example. So it's in any answer. So the question is, why do I have to know this? Your answer is always going to be, it's going to help you in become a better person in terms of all those skills. So all the cognitive skills. So for example, cognitive skills of performing an action and being accomplished. I know we talked about this at the last seminar, was that the more times that you accomplish a task, so you're faced with a challenge, whether you like it or not, the more times you accomplish it, the more accomplished you're going to become, right? And that is going back to that killer actions equal habits equals character. So why do I have to know this? Well, because we want you to be accomplished. We want you to face challenges. We want you to be able to create actions of, not everything you're going to experience in life you're going to need to know or do, but if you perform it properly with a growth mindset, you're going to create a good habit of accomplishing tasks and then go forth with that. Okay, so if you ever ask that question, you can use all these things, especially the last one, the actions habits one, and make an attachment to success. Okay. Then it goes on to tell you some assessment questions during the program and for designing the lesson. We have a rubric we've created to assess weaknesses and strengths. Can you teach them something physical? Can you teach them something academic? Can you have them focus on a physical and non-physical task for a particular time frame? These are all the things that you're going to be looking at. Okay, these questions will help you design a program, and when the program's going on, these are the things to look for. If you can teach them something physical, then you can definitely teach them to do something academic as well. It's a bright spot. And then down there it shows you some interventions to work on, to focus on. Number one, again, experiencing the joy cycle, input, dominance, some focus drills, looking at state-dependent learning, emotional control to failure, all those things. So those are there for you to help you get started, but we're also available for that one-on-one talk. I have a client with this and with this thing, what should I start out with? Absolutely. Until they are a skilled performer. So you're going to look at, are they still making mistakes in here?
Right.
Or can we move on and try and maybe make some bigger mistakes? Okay? Because again, like our lives are only as interesting as the mistakes we make, right? Right? Yeah, exactly. So even if you want to make the mistake a goal to determine where they are, go ahead. Let's see if we can make a really big mistake. So next is in the textbook. I think there's some weekly challenges or something to get them started. And so what I've done was I think it was like a 7-week block where we took weekly interventions. So 1-minute interventions. We have a lower body exercise. We have an upper. We have a midline movement. Is that a dog?
Sounds like it.
We have a complex movement. We have agility. We have a mobility. So week 1 would look like this. Okay, let's say squats. Let's say push-ups. Really simple. Sit-ups. Complex meaning putting 2 movements together. We'll say a burpee. Agility, we'll do the dots, agility dots, which are putting those on the floor and then jumping different patterns with 1 foot, 2 foot, whatever. And then a stretch. Let's say it's just stretching in a lunge. Okay? So for week 1, these are the things that we're going to work on. So this is like setting up in a classroom, okay? Or if you see somebody on a regular daily basis, okay? Anytime that you have a transition or you want them to do something before you do an activity or while you're setting up an activity, this is what you'll ask them to do, let's say for 1 minute at a time, okay? So this is really easy to just put on the board and say, okay, squats. Let's see how many squats everyone can do in 1 minute. Set the timer, and then go. You can add 2 movements together. You can play with this however you want. Okay? The idea is you're going to keep the same movements for a week. The reason is we want to see if we can rack up, how many points we can rack up of practice. Okay? Because we want to show them a relationship between success and effort. So let's say a student racks up, and say I give it a choice, okay, and the student only chooses to do push-ups every single day. Let's say they rack up 30 minutes of push-ups. Well, guess what? Think that student's going to outperform somebody else on a push-up test? Absolutely. He's got more practice with it, right? So we want to physically show this relationship. And so each week we start with simple movements, and then the next week we make them a little bit harder. But the idea is only 1 minute at a time. They get a chance to play with the movement. They get a chance to do it as many times as they want in a day. They get to focus on that one movement for the week and then show a relationship between practice and success. And it's also a great way for transitioning, for if a student's done their work early, if you're just trying to fill a space, fill some time. Say, okay, for 5 minutes or 6 minutes, you're going to run through 1 minute of everything. Go. And we're doing it for practice points. So that is a classroom setup. What's that? You can add reps, but usually it's if you do this, yeah, you can do it for minutes. Like you can do, yeah, however you want to do it. Totally up to you. Your preference. They'll say either hold it. Can you hold a squat for a minute? Can you do as many in a minute? And that's something too. Like when you're doing reps in a minute, that's something that they'll definitely show improvement on, right? Really quickly. Okay. This is for exercise. Then for focus drills, in the student handbook, there's a whole bunch of eye tracking, handwriting ones, spelling, grammar. Like you can do anything. Okay, with academic, depending on the goal. So just take 1 minute. Let's say we're working on cursive writing. That's a big one. A lot of students don't know how to do cursive writing. Okay, so we can add in academic in here too as well. As fast as you can, write the alphabet all in cursive, all together. Don't lift your pen, type of thing. Go. Just look at breaking down. All right. So next would be just to put together some plans and some ideas. If you have any specific cases, we can look at. And again, on our websites, the Catalyst website, on CrossFit, there's a lot of exercise stuff. Hey. There's a lot of ideas for workouts. Yeah, I think that's her dog. There's a lot of different ideas for workouts if you guys are jonesing for some ideas. Okay, so the next would be, let's look at just going through let's go through movement skill. Now, would you ever be in you'd be more in an academic and cognitive skill type of setting?
Yeah.
Never a physical.
I would need to have space.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be my biggest issue.
So how to increase heart rate on a small space?
A very small space. Like my office room is a big area.
Okay. Do you have a 3x3 area?
That big. Yeah.
Okay. So some stationary things that you can do would be squats to the chair, the dot drill. So you draw that, and this is one of Curtis's favorites. He friggin' dies, but he's good at it. So just moving. So for a minute, like you'll be surprised at how tired you get in a really small space. 1 foot going back and forth. Like you'll be surprised how quickly and you can increase that heart rate. Okay. Step 3 would be to activate the bright spots. Introduce prior knowledge. Step 4, perform the lesson specific focus drill. So that would be, you can do the figure eights. You can do, depending on how skilled the performer is at the specific task, you can use the quick thinking activities. You can use anything that involves left side, right side integration to try and increase the size of that corpus callosum to make sure that there's a lot of communication there. Perform the pre-activity. Again, that's depending on the skill level of the person. You may be able to skip or join these two things together. The pre-activity and the focus drill. Okay, that's when, after some time with that, give them the lesson, spend some time working with the lesson, and then plan an anchoring activity. And then planning the anchoring activity, that's where we'll definitely need some help in terms of, okay, what do I do? Be creative. Take the lesson, add it in a stressful situation, increase the arousal level, decrease the arousal level. On that sheet there's some ideas. The one how to talk to your students, how to talk to your kids about homework. Yeah, and I guess we'll have to be just in constant contact for ideas on those things. So is there any area right now that you guys would like to brainstorm about or ask questions on, or just try and write down a plan with a kid in mind or an activity in mind or a client in mind? Yeah. As far as resources go, I was lucky enough to get some resources from an optometrist for eye tracking. There are some things online that you can get, like printable sheets for having those two images and trying to cross them. There's a couple of other ones actually that I have on the computer that are in the student handbook, which you can use as well. But it would be worth your time to get on the internet and try and grab some of those activities yourself. Yeah. I have 4. I have about 4 I can give you. Some of the other ones have equipment, like there's these eye flippers. I'll show you. Oh, here's that card. Want to try that? See if you can get the third circle in the middle. Should look like 3D. This, you can just use the book. One way makes the image look further away, and when you flip it, it makes the image look closer. So what we're looking at is the amount of time it takes your eyes to adjust to making it clear. Yeah, so go ahead and hold that up to your nose. You can flip it around if you need to.
And then when I'm trying to make
Yeah, just flip it up and down.
back, like just keep going back.
Yep, until when it's clear, and then flip it again.
This one's hard. Maybe I have vision problems.
Okay, you can bring the page closer. You don't have to. Got it? Yeah. There's something called pencil push-ups too, where you have to place some type of object or have some object in the background. Okay, so for example, if you put that.
There, that made it easier.
Yeah.
I started off up close and then slowly went back.
Brought it back.
I can retain it.
Perfect.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The other way, the way that one of my other clients was able to do it was with something called pencil push-ups. So, staring at a pen pencil, making sure that whatever's in the background is doubled. So it has to be something small enough that can double, like a can, a doorknob, something. So you're staring at the pen, and then you're bringing the pen close, and if that object back there stays doubled, then you know you're doing it right. But if that comes into focus and the pen doubles, then you know your eyes aren't converging on what you're asking them to. So you can try some pencil push-ups.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that, take a page,
Okay.
and it just works on, again, if a student has trouble looking at their homework and then up at the board and then back down to their homework, you know, the distance and the time amount of focusing it takes, we can improve that too. Yeah. So that's for, like I was telling Clint, if a student has a difficulty with doing their work, looking up at the board, and it's not in focus, and then going back to, so focus shifts, increasing the speed of focus shifts. There's also a set of glasses that have red and green. So like kind of like 3D, but it's a test for eye dominance in this coloring book. So what happens is, and these can adjust too to different, I can move the red one over there. So what's happening is if I open up this coloring book and I put these glasses on and the image disappears, that means I'm right eye dominant because you can't see the image with the red lens. You can only see it with the green lens. Okay, so just put those on. Put them on. Okay, so close your left eye. Image is gone.
Yeah.
Okay, open and close your right eye.
I can see everything.
Right, you can see everything. But if there was a student, okay,
So
and
I see everything with my left eye.
right now, well, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now if we switch those around,
Switch the lenses around.
yeah, if we switch them around and they're like, both eyes are open, they're like, the image is gone. Well, we know which eye is dominant. And then we can use these coloring books to have them focus long enough on this page so that they are able to see the object. Because if they don't notice that they're using the right eye only for a really long time reading, then again, the words that they're processing may be processed in the wrong part of the brain. So if they can color this whole book or inside the lines without losing the image, then that's a good eye teaming exercise.
In week 3, we've discussed delivery, including bright spots, talent myth, 20% bonus, and the gap theory. We also talked quite a bit about the growth mindset and started talking about some specific examples of planning for specific clients. We'll be going through more case studies online through the Ignite NeuroMotive Coach Certification discussion board. Please find 2 more case studies there. Have a great week.